This is Unearthing. And the reason I called this episode Unearthing is because I'm really interested in finding the diamond in the rough. Smart Switcher is all about removing friction when it comes to switching those common consumer products and services, finance, telcos, utilities, etc. So what we need to do is to be able to understand, well, what are the reasons why people switch already today, and where is their difficulty in that journey? So this episode is about trying to uncover the difficulties and uncover the opportunities as we work through it. So as we think about the sort of products and services that Smart Switcher applies to, what I wanted to do was kind of look at the factors that make people switch today and the factors that Smart Switcher is going to have to simplify in order to remove friction from the audience. Key factors, of course, unsurprisingly, price we need to look at. We need to look at performance. Does the product deliver what is expected of it? We need to look at customer support. Is customer support good when there's a problem? Does the product have a feature set that we require? What about promotions? Are there competitors who are offering promotions out there that are more attractive to me and consequently will make me switch? So for Smart Switcher, the questions I want to be able to answer and I want to be able to prioritize around are, will it be more costly? Will it work better? Is support good? What's the experience of existing customers in that area? Can I get the features I need? Is there a deal to be had? And finally, and not to be forgotten, is really how to make the switch. And are there structural issues in switching that are actually really difficult and hold people back? So we set out with our hypothesis, and this is where we bring AI into the process to help us. And what I was looking for was really three key things from it. Tell me where to look, tell me what to look for, and help me to draw the conclusions by doing the heavy lifting and the data processing off the back of it. So in terms of where to look, actually with a pretty simple prompt at the front end, we were able to get recommendations to look in Reddit, perhaps obvious to try and get that kind of customer sentiment and particularly customer service sentiment out of it, but also recommendations to use also ask the public as well. Now these two products use Google Graph data, so that automated fill-in of the search term, Ian Marsden is ... The fill-in of that search term, and from there they iterate through a whole raft. What turned out to happen was that ultimately the list of search terms, and we had something like 11,000 search terms that were exploded from these platforms. I'm not going to go through a spreadsheet manually and say, hey, this falls into our price sensitivity category. This falls into our promotional category, for example. My hope was, hey, use language processing in AI, and that should be something, given the scale of LLMs, that is very straightforward to do. The reality was time and time and time again, and I iterated this 4, 5, 6 times over a couple of days to try and draw some conclusions out of it. And almost like we ended up in a deeper and deeper and deeper spiral where more complex approaches being suggested, and frankly, approaches that seemed incredibly credible. I've never come across TDIF clustering before. So that was a first for me, as well as with ADA semantic clustering, I think it was called. presumably super powerful techniques when used in the right way and when implemented in the right way. But I'm not expecting ChatGPT to make sort of suggestions for things based on a data set that I've uploaded and provided that won't work or that are not applicable. And I think the highlight or low light of this particular conversation was at a point when I said and my frustration was rising and rising and rising. When my frustration was rising, I said to ChatGPT, just do it in the interface. And the next thing it did was give me a Python script. I'm like, no, I don't want to go implement a standalone Python script. I don't want to mess around with that. I want a quick answer. And ultimately, I had a recommendation. I collected the data in line with the recommendation. I uploaded to try and get it processed, and ChatGPT could not process the data to drive towards a recommendation. And time again, we ended up with misclassifications. We ended up with more than 50% of our records unclassified, frankly, just to a point of unusability. Just wasn't worth it. At which point, I have to step back and go, okay, draw a line under this one. Let's pivot and let's look elsewhere. So we did look at Gummy Search as well. Gummy Search is a really loved pulling together the audiences in there, but its querying was pretty limited in so much as anything I asked it to query, even after I'd created an account in there, seemed to be limited to about 100 terms. And for me, that's just not going to be statistically valid. So rolled back out a Gummy Search and asked again my co-founder whether there were recommendations for extracting more from Reddit. In this circumstance, it gave me a Python script as part of it and said, hey, you can do this. You can go mine using the Reddit API and you can extract sentiment that way. Thought, why not give this a go? So I applied that through Windsurf. I made a couple of tweaks that Windsurf was recommending to me. And I should say, I'm not a coder, but vibe coding is very cool. Made a couple of tweaks to it. And once I'd done those tweaks, I had a working version of a sentiment analysis tool, which was really quite epic in my mind. Did a little bit of comparison on the terms for sentiments, and the algorithm we were using was a sort of an off-the-shelf algorithm there. Compared that to the LLM approach, and actually pretty close in terms of outputs. So that was a real win. Actually to generate something in, I'd say, 3 hours that gives me an ability to query into Reddit, build my own sentiment analysis there, and come back to the top level idea here that we want to be able to de-risk switching. And so by showing potential customers, these are the sentiments of customers already with those carriers, recognizing, of course, that there will be biases, I think a really good outcome there. Interesting from the analysis, we found Verizon seemed to have the best sentiment, but I will say that the scope was fairly limited there, and it lends itself to extending a lot further at this point. Still didn't really answer my Google questions, so I bounced a bit more there. And what we actually finally came to with Google was a tool called Ubersuggest. It's like Answer the Public, but with more capability. I think it comes from the same stable of products. And actually, I'm not quite sure how we got to it, but I suppose you'd say frustrated collaboration in the end. But that frustrated collaboration led to actually pivoting the question entirely. ChatGPT suggested using the keyword optimizer tool in Ubersuggest, which I did. I asked ChatGPT to give me the terms to put into that tool. When I did that, you get the listing of the keywords. You get the listing of where those keywords are being used, i.e. the competitive space, which I think is really interesting, but also the volumes and the cost per click as well. So actually it gives us the first time a set of data that we can meaningfully apply and numerically apply to the problem set that we'd set out here. When we've done that, we've put that data back into Excel, run some simple pivot charts on it, and actually we get to some conclusions that feel meaningful, right? And actually emphasize once again for telco, particularly network is key, de-risking network is key. And so that'll be a next step for us within the product itself to make sure that we have enough network related information. And that, I suppose, is part of the gem I was looking to unearth. But now we've got some tangible evidence behind it, rather than it just being an idea or a sentiment that I might personally have. So if we're going to form a conclusion out of this process, which I suppose that we should, or this particular task, I've also got my notes here of what my conclusion was. But fundamentally, I would say in this instance, AI has not been a data scientist. I guess the best analogy would be someone who's done all of the teaching, and so they know about the algorithms and they know about the approaches, but never done it for real, and actually therefore have no concept of, is the information that you're pushing out there good or bad? So massive fail in that regard. I'd also say a fail in the category of being a decent product manager here. While it's pointing us at some tools, it's misguided us to some of those tools as well. So we spent time, we've wasted time in the process that we could have avoided, which I would have preferred to avoid. But I do think it gets a tick in the box in terms of collaboration, because ultimately it prompts a level of thinking and it prompts some exposure that wouldn't be there otherwise. And I think it also does a big tick in the box actually in terms of that junior coder type of role, knocking out that Python script in seconds for me to apply in hours and get some answers from, actually super impressed with in that sense. So maybe we've got 1.5 ticks in the box this week, 2 crosses in the box. You're not going to get fired yet.